Hello people, this is the Marco for Poker VIP. I'm your newest video producer and I'm going to produce content for this site related to self-development. I've been studying this domain for 5 years and I've been very interested in increasing human performance, particularly mine. Throughout all this time, I've also been a poker player and I think I can relate pretty well self-development to poker. My main interest has been in increasing my productivity. I have a very curious mind and a hunger to understand how things work, and I think this is going to make me able to explain how you can improve yourself. I am also a medical student. I'm in my third year now, which means that I've already gone through the first 2 years, which are all about understanding how the normal human body works. By normal human body, I mean the body without any pathological process in it. Topics I think that are relevant for poker players range from the basics like nutrition, exercise and sleep, to topics like willpower, maintaining motivation, managing your energy, or even planning and scheduling. I want to make one clear point from the beginning. I think the only way you are going to benefit from my videos is by taking action, and I'm going to try and make my part as best as I can by presenting you immediate action steps which you can apply right away in order to get massive results. I took a definition from the freedictionary.com since I want to make sure that we are talking about the same thing here. Ergonomics refers to the design factors intended to maximize productivity by minimizing operative fatigue and discomfort. This definition points out the benefits for which I think you should be interested in studying ergonomics. You maximize your productivity, which for us poker players is going to mean more hours on the tables and with higher concentration. And you also minimize operative fatigue and discomfort. This I think is going to translate in more hours at the table and you feeling more happy at the end of the session without any pain in your wrist or in your lower back. All this I think translates in you gaining more EV over the long term. By applying ergonomics, you are going to avoid all sorts of pain, ranging from neck and upper back pain to lower back pain or the very common wrist pain. This image represents an overall of what ergonomics means. As you can see, there are lots of angles involved, but you don't have to be afraid by this. All the angles presented here have the target of maintaining your joints in their physiological position, which means that you're not keeping your joints extended or flexed. We are going to take every joint one by one and we're going to discuss their proper positioning. I'll try to make things as clear as possible. If I make any mistakes or you have any questions, you can always ask me in the comment box and I'll respond there. With this picture, I'm going to try and show you why you should apply ergonomics and what you're going to get if you don't apply them. I think you can all agree that there is something wrong with this position of this man's wrist. I think you can make a comparison by what the position is here. As you can see, this is called an extended position. And this position, where the wrist is straight, this is called a neutral position. As you can already guess, the bottom position is the physiological one, where you don't put any stress on your wrist. Now, what is going to be the problem with the positioning that the man has in the upper image? Well, the problem is that he is keeping his wrist in an extended position, which means that he's putting too much stress on one side of the joint while not putting enough on the other side. This will inevitably lead to an imbalance in the joint, which over the years is going to translate in a defective joint, which for you, the owner of that wrist, is going to translate in having chronic pain or periods where you can't basically use your wrist to do anything. Now we are going to discuss about neck and upper back. This is one of the most important areas in ergonomics. There are a few things you have to take care of. 3 of them are written on the slide. There are monitor distance, monitor's placement, and using some kind of neck support. First, the monitor distance. All your monitors should be placed at about arm's length from you. This is pretty easy to do, I imagine, for most of you. The next A very important thing is monitor placement. You should try and make all your monitors have their top edge at the same level, which means that if you use monitors of multiple dimensions, you should try and make the lower ones at the same level with the bigger one. And you can use some kind of lever for this, like a book or any kind of box, in order to make their top edge as close as possible to a straight line. We are going to discuss this aspect in the next slides, where I'm going to comment on a few poker setups. Another thing, in order to minimize the damage you do on your neck by using multiple monitors, you should try and put them as close as possible to each other, so that you minimize your neck movement. If you minimize your neck movement, you minimize the stress you put on that joint, which will result in it doing better over the long term. The last point here on the slide, I think it's pretty optional. If you have like really chronic neck pain, this might be very good for you. So as I said, only if you have a problem already with your neck, you should try and use a chair with a headrest. Try and find one in a store that feels very comfortable, as from my experience it's pretty hard to get one that really feels good for you. So now let's discuss a few poker setups. This one, I think it's pretty good. It respects all the things we talked about so far. As I said, as you can see here, that the monitors being of the same size, it's really easy to put them side by side. You have to keep an eye that they form here a straight line, which being of the same size here they do. Also, I like in this setup that they are angled in such a way that they minimize the neck movements of the owner. Another thing, you should always try and put your monitors so that the top line, which I talked about here, that should be a straight one, should be at about your eye level. So if you look at your monitor horizontally, you should see the front line, and only look at the rest of the screen by moving your eyes down. So in my opinion, this is a pretty good setup and a very simple one to do. This is an example of setup with two monitors that are not of the same size, but I appreciate this guy because he used this box and made so that the smaller screen is at the same level with the larger one, which is going to be very good for his eyes and his neck. This setup is not as good as the other ones. First of all, the screens are pretty far apart. Second of all, they're not at the same level. To correct this, I would suggest that if you have a setup similar to this, use a cooling pad for the laptop and one with adjustable height. This will allow you to adjust the height of the laptop, so you can make possibly even a perfectly straight line between this line and this one. I would also put the screens closer to each other, and I think the setup would be much better for the owner. And this is an example of a setup that is made especially well. This is from a Supernova Elite guy, and I congratulate him on this piece of art. And this is an example of a chair with a headrest. As I said, only if you already have a discomfort in your neck area, I suggest you go in the store and try to find one that really offers you a good support. If you are experiencing any eye problems, there are a few things I suggest you do. First of all, I don't think all of you have played with the brightness and contrast of your screens. I suggest you try and do this and try to find a level with which you are very comfortable. I cannot give specific indications on this because this will depend very much on your configuration and your personal preferences. Another thing important to reduce the eye strain you put on your eyes is the size of your pop-ups and your tables. Go in, hold the manager and play with the font size of your HUD, and also try and find a comfortable size of your tables. If you want to play 12 tables on a monitor, it probably is not going to work and it's not going to be good for your eyes. If you want to play 12 tables, you probably have the money to buy at least one more screen and split those tables. If you play even more tables, then using multiple monitors is a must, in my opinion, if you play them tiled, of course. This little software that I present here, which is called f.looks, does a very nice thing for your eyes by changing the color scheme of your screens in accordance to the outside lighting, which means that in the evenings and in the mornings it takes out the blue out of the color scheme of your screen, which translates in you getting less stimulation and allowing you to have a better sleep at night. The fourth point here would be to minimize glare. This applies to your screens and your desk as well. For this, I suggest you place your workstation so that it is perpendicular on the windows in your room. If you have your windows behind, the sun can be reflected in the screens. If you have the workstation in front of your window, the sunlight can cause you problems. In this image you can see proper positioning of your elbows. Only thing I will add here would be some kind of armrest which would allow your shoulders to also get relaxed. In this image the angle at the elbow, which is this one, is 90 degrees. You can have this angle between 90 and 110 degrees, which means that it will not be like this anymore, it would be more like this. But I suggest you that you take care to never get below 90 degrees, which would mean like this, because you can inflict some damage on the nerves that pass at your elbow level. So use armrest and 90 to 100 degrees angle and take care that your shoulders are relaxed. Now I'm going to talk about lower back. Lower back pain is very common these days. This is mostly due to the fact that we stay at the desk for many hours each day and without having adequate support for our spine. We want to be smarter than that, and you can prevent having chronic lower back pain by using a good lumbar support. What does a good lumbar support means? It means using a good chair or using an attachable lumbar support, or if you don't have any of these and want to have a quick fix, you can use either a pillow or a rolled towel. In this image you can see what the lumbar support does. It basically takes your spine from this position to this one, where it has this lumbar curve, which is its physiological position. By physiological I mean the position in which it's best kept. As you can see, if you put this lumbar support, you don't have other option other than sitting correctly. Now wrist. I think many of you have experienced at one point in your life wrist pain. I have 3 suggestions for you in order to minimize the chance of experiencing this kind of pain again. First of all, you should try and get the ergonomic mouse. You have more options here. Of course, if you spend more than $100 on a mouse like a Razer mouse, you should be good. But as with the chair, I suggest you try them out in a store and only buy a mouse if it feels really good in your hand. Probably most of you haven't heard about the vertical mouse, but it should be the best from an ergonomic standpoint. I think it might be the best option if you already experience wrist pain on a frequent basis. The second thing I suggest you do is to set your mouse speed to maximum in your operating system. This should be pretty easily. If you don't manage to do this, just search on YouTube a video on how to increase mouse speed and your operating system. The third thing, and the thing that has helped me the most, as I myself experienced wrist pain 2 years ago, is using a mouse pad with wrist support. This is how they look, and I have one very similar to this one. Basically they support your wrist so that it is not extended as we show in the beginning with that man's wrist, but it's closer to its physiological position, which is being basically straight. For your knees and your feet, at the moment I only suggest you get a desk fit support. You have 2 options here in my opinion. You can either do it yourself. I made one myself out of a shoebox pretty easily. I'm going to show you an image of how it looks, or you can buy one from Amazon. This is how they look. They're adjustable and they're going to keep your knees and feet in good position. This is how my desk fit support looks like. This was a rectangular box. It was like this. I made a cut like this. An overall aspect of ergonomics is taking frequent pauses. Basically, they is no substitution for this because it has a very strong physiological basis. Why do I say this? Because if you think about it, we were never meant to stay at a desk for 6-8 hours straight each day. We were meant to roam the land and work many hours a day continuously and always move around, which means that our joints are not made to stay immobilized for very long periods of time. So the only thing you can do here is to take frequent pauses and get up from a chair, move around the house a bit and then get back. This would be best done every 30 minutes. I know that this is going to be perfect for Zoom players or speed players or whatever form of speed poker you play. But even as a tournament player, if during that period you get up and move around, you're still going to do fine. For cash players, I think you should anyways take a break every 1 hour, at least for 2 minutes, to get up, get a glass of water and move a bit around the house in order to prevent tilt and build up of emotions and many other good things. If this is new for you, I suggest to use a timer and set it on whatever period you want to take a break. For tournament players, this is not necessary. I personally suggest people that play speed poker take a break every 30 minutes. For cash game players, every 1 hour I think should be doable. We are going to talk more about proper break taking in another video, and I'm going to give you the reasons there, but for now I think this is enough. I hope you enjoyed this video. This was DeMarco for Poker VIP. You can leave your comments in the chat box below. See you next time.